Ben, I got to tell you, the whole time I was in San Francisco, I was thinking, yeah, this is bad, but this is nothing compared to Vancouver's East Hastings Street. And even in Toronto, there's tent communities under underpasses. That used to be purely an American phenomenon. We held ourselves, we thought we were superior to that. We thought, oh, that's American poverty. And it's not just in big cities in Canada, it's in medium-sized cities and even towns now. I don't know, it's just astonishing. And what's incredible to me as I'm trying to grapple with this is Trump isn't president yet, and not for 2 more months, but simply by speaking with a combination of command and I would say threat, he's already causing the world to change and react. Mexico has already said they will. I think at the end of the day, Canadian business will say to Justin Trudeau, stop this border shenanigans or you will kill the auto industry. You will kill the banking industry. You will kill cross-border trade. So I think that Trump is basically, in his rough way, achieving a policy outcome from Americans that is happy. And I don't like Canada being threatened, so to speak, but I think the outcome that will happen here is that Canada smartens up on immigration and drugs. How's that not a win for Canada? I just think it is, Ben.
Yeah, absolutely right. And it is worth noting that in America, in the 2024 election cycle, we did see a repudiation in any number of blue jurisdictions of the kinds of policies that, to your point, have led to the likes of the Tenderloin District in San Francisco being completely antisocial and broken down. So there is a pendulum swinging back. Obviously, it's personified in Donald Trump, but it also goes down to state and local level elections as well. But I think to your point, and he's said this himself, I believe, that is the former president, now the incoming president, that his position with respect to the threats of tariffs, ultimately, for example, in the economic focus, are about using tariffs as a lever to ultimately get back to genuine free trade, to get every side to drop their tariffs. So it is a tactic. It's not about a love of them for the sake of the tariffs, but as a tool in the toolbox to get to a desired outcome that ultimately is going to be better for every party, which, in the case of economics and talking about European countries, for example, would be everyone dropping their barriers to trade. So I think there's a realization of that on the economic side. And then to your point here, this is really about using an economic lever to drive non-economic changes. To your point, security changes, sovereignty changes, changes relating to the infiltration of drugs, the influx of drugs into the U.S., so from the North and the South. It's not a bad faith effort. It's a good faith effort. And it's what are the tools in the toolbox? And obviously, tariffs were a prominent part of U.S. policy for well over a century. And it's really been a phenomenon of the last, call it 50 to 75 years in the U.S., where there's been less of a focus on them as a potential tool. But it makes enormous sense. If you're going to put your country first, you're going to use every tool in the toolbox, every arrow you have in the quiver to try and effectuate the changes that you want. And to your point, this is going to be a win-win on both sides, but this is just one bargaining tool. But it's made by a credible leader. And that is the real difference at the end of the day, is that foreign leaders know that Donald Trump means business. Yes, this may be a negotiating tactic, but he's willing to go all the way. And that's obviously imperative in any negotiation.
Yeah, I mean, literally the week Trump won the election, the Houthi terrorist group in Yemen announced it was going to stop hijacking freighters in the Red Sea. There's only one reason they chose that date, because they knew Trump was coming and they didn't want to be
NATO leaders talking about upping their commitments all around the world. You've seen immediately just the change in leader, the incoming change alone has caused a sea change.
And they disrespect the leaders, but through the disrespect, they had disrespected America for 4 years. And it's like that meme that Trump always, that I see a lot, a very sober-minded Trump, and the words are, they're not coming for me, they're coming for you, but I'm in the way. There's some essential truth in that, is that Trump is the pointy edge of the spear, but it's Americans who will get the benefit of economic or national security benefit. And what drives me nuts is how Canadians are saying Trump wants this lunatic economic policy of tariffs. No, he doesn't. It's the prod to get what he really wants. It reminds me how I see some pundits saying Trump will disarm NATO. Trump will destroy NATO. Because Trump says if you don't increase your spending, we're out of here. Well, of course, Trump wants them to increase their spending. It's, again, a tactic, a lever. You could say it's a threat. And by the way, the old NATO boss loved it because Trump was scaring the NATO members into giving more because he was threatening to leave if they didn't. To say, oh, Trump wants to destroy NATO. No, he's making a credible threat that the other leaders respond to it. And that's the thing, Ben. NATO had their summit in Montreal last week, which is a disgrace because Canada doesn't deserve it. We're, I think, literally the last place in terms of our percentage of GDP towards the military. And Trudeau couldn't even manage to hold the summit without having riots in the street by Islamists, by announcing he stood with Hamas and the International Criminal Court against Western allies. Like, I don't think Canada had earned that NATO summit. We're such a disgrace on the military side. But even when it fell into our lap, Trudeau really didn't care about it. He was at the Taylor Swift concert. It was a bit of an embarrassment. Did anyone in America even follow that?
I saw it on social media. You could find it on X. And of course, the powers that be here obviously want to cripple X, wanted to destroy Elon Musk, and he found himself or his businesses investigated by, I think I saw, almost a dozen different agencies in the U.S. But to that point, it was the split screen there of enjoying a concert, rioters out in the streets, again, the antisocial behavior on behalf of or executed by people who want to destroy our civilization and the values and principles and the people who have made Canada a great nation. Again, I think this is just illustrative of the madness that has prevailed over far too much of the West. And to your point, the sobriety that is coming very quickly when you have a populist nationalist leader leading America who says enough is enough. And by the way, it's not just about making other countries pay their fair share to defend themselves and their people and combating free riding. It's about having actual allies and partners, not client states who are reliant on America for everything and ultimately don't serve either side. And that's a big change. You know, I would argue that the Obama, Biden, Harris sort of view has actually been to try to create controllable client states, not allies and partners, preferring multilateral venues over bilateral negotiations. And that's a massive change that you're going to see as well, is much more of a focus on bilateral relationships, burden sharing, everyone contributing equally to shared ends. Otherwise, it just simply doesn't make sense. What country would say that we're going to foot the bill disproportionately for institutions or PACs that end up disproportionately undermining that country? It's just asinine. No citizenry would want that from their leaders.